If you've been watching the news from East Asia lately, you might have sensed something shifting. Something heavier than the usual diplomatic back and forth. In fact, the tension in the region today feels very different from what we've been used to over the past decades. And it's not just about missiles, drills, or speeches. It's about a slow but unmistakable unraveling of the post-war order that has kept Japan, China, and Taiwan in a fragile balance for years. Before we dive deeper and explain why this moment truly matters, do me a small favor. If you find value in this breakdown, hit the like button and share this video. Your support really helps us reach more people who follow global affairs. Now, let's get into the heart of it. The security landscape in East Asia is becoming sharper, more unpredictable, and frankly, more alarming. Japan is finding itself squeezed between its pacifist, post-war identity and a rapidly changing regional environment driven by China's military buildup and assertive behavior. The new Japanese Prime Minister Tokaii has walked directly into this storm, and every move she makes is being watched closely not only in Tokyo and Beijing, but in Washington and Taipei as well. A major turning point came with her recent remarks about Taiwan. She suggested that a Chinese military operation against Taiwan could pose an existential threat to Japan. Now, this wasn't framed as a policy shift. Japan described it as a legal interpretation under the 2015 security law. But Beijing didn't care about the framing. What it heard was a direct link between Japan's national survival and Taiwan's security. And that single connection? It detonated a diplomatic chain reaction. China's consul general in Osaka fired off a threatening message on social media, something so provocative that it had to be deleted later. Tokyo condemned it. The US ambassador scolded Beijing, and China responded by advising its citizens to avoid Japan and warning Tokyo that any intervention in a Taiwan conflict would result in a crushing defeat. The tone wasn't subtle, and it wasn't the usual carefully measured diplomatic language. But the deeper story isn't just about comments or deleted posts, it's about what these reactions reveal. That the unspoken rules keeping Japan and China from clashing over Taiwan are disappearing. Here's the first hook worth paying attention to. Japan had always maintained strategic ambiguity on Taiwan, never saying openly whether a conflict there would trigger its right to collective self-defense. Tokai broke that tradition. And once a taboo is broken in geopolitics, it doesn't go back in the box. That wasn't the only moment that raised eyebrows. At the APEC summit in South Korea, Prime Minister Tokaii met with Lin, a former senior Taiwanese leader. Lin referred to him as an advisor to Taiwan's presidential office and expressed hope for deepening cooperation. Beijing erupted, calling it egregious, arguing it violated the 1972 joint communique acknowledging China's position on Taiwan. To China, these aren't minor diplomatic slip-ups. They hit deep historical nerves. And this is another hook the audience should feel. Every Japan-China tension today sits on a century of unresolved trauma. China still carries the scars of Japanese imperial expansion, the annexation of Taiwan in 1895, the occupation of Manchuria, the Nanjing Massacre. These are not distant episodes in China's national memory. They're taught in classrooms, embedded in films, and treated as foundational to Chinese identity. Japan, on the other hand, sees these events through a different lens, one filtered by post-war reforms, American occupation, and a constitution designed to ensure it would never again wage war. Article 9, the famous renunciation of war, became both a safeguard and a self-imposed psychological barrier. But now that barrier is eroding. Tokai's rise marks a significant shift. She is a conservative nationalist, skeptical of China, closely aligned with US strategy, and comfortable challenging the pacifist consensus. Her visits to the Yasukuni Shrine, where 14 Class A war criminals are enshrined, tell China and South Korea that Japan's political winds are changing direction. In her early speeches, she promised to speed up the military buildup, cross the 2% GDP defense spending target earlier than planned, and revise Japan's national security strategy. She even floated something once unthinkable, a quasi-security partnership with Taiwan. For China, this is not cautious diplomacy. It's a flashing red sign that Japan is positioning itself for a potential crisis in the TaiwanStrait. And here's where another hook comes in. China doesn't see Japan's Taiwan stance as a technical legal matter. It sees it through the lens of history. Foreign powers using Taiwan to contain China, just as they did over a century ago. Even though Japan and China are major trading partners, economic cooperation can't erase the mistrust created by war, occupation, and decades of competing national narratives. From Beijing's point of view, Japan's defensive posture is giving way to something more assertive, backed by U.S. strategy, framed as protecting democracy, but interpreted by China as encirclement. Meanwhile, Japan's pacifist constitution, once a reassurance to China that Japan would never again project military force, is being reinterpreted, re-examined, and in Takaichi's view, ready for revision. Japan is acquiring long-range strike capabilities, strengthening ties with the US and regional partners, and even coordinating more closely with NATO. This is unprecedented in modern Japanese history, and we should pause here for a moment because this is where the region's equilibrium truly begins to shift. If Japan no longer keeps its moves ambiguous, if China accelerates its military buildup, and if Taiwan remains the trigger point in the middle, then EastAsia enters an era where miscalculation becomes the biggest fear. Before we continue, let me ask you something. What do you think the biggest risk is here? History, nationalism, the US role, or economic competition? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one of them, and your insights help shape future videos. Now, back to the story. Tokai's comments didn't just raise alarms because of their content. They raised alarms because of who she is as a leader. She's bold, ideological, and inexperienced in crisis management. Beijing worries that she might respond to a tense situation, say a Chinese vessel entering Japanese waters, with toughness rather than caution. And once both sides start reacting based on ideology and pride, the margin for error becomes razor thin. Add the United States to this picture, and the landscape shifts even more. Washington sees Japan as a central pillar in its strategy to contain China's rise. It has encouraged Tokyo's military buildup and welcomed its more assertive stance. But the closer Japan aligns with US goals, the more Beijing feels encircled. Economic ties between Japan and China remain strong, and in many ways they maintain a fragile peace. But economics alone cannot overcome the weight of historical memory or the strategic concerns each side carries. Both governments are preparing for worst-case scenarios even as trade continues. So what does all of this mean for the future? It means Japan and China are entering a new phase, one where strategic ambiguity is gone, psychological barriers are breaking, and military preparations on both sides are intensifying. It means the Taiwan issue is no longer a distant hypothetical, but a central factor shaping Japan's security decisions. And it means the calm many assumed would last indefinitely in East Asia may be giving way to something more uncertain. Whether this leads to confrontation or a new balance depends on the leaders involved, and their ability to manage history, nationalism, and competing visions for the region. One thing is clear: the world is watching closely. Because what happens between Japan, China, and Taiwan won't stay confined to East Asia. It will ripple across the global economy, trade networks, and the international order itself. Thank you for staying until the end. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss future updates. And as always, thanks for watching.